I'm Eitan Weinstein.
And I'm Naor Menninger. And you're listening to Two Nice Jewish Boys.
This podcast is made in collaboration with the Jewish Journal.
Let's say you're an adrenaline junkie. There's tons of extreme activities out there that will get your heart pounding to whatever level your heart desires. You can bungee jump off a bridge, swim with sharks in the open sea, or jump out of a plane without a parachute. Or you can take the lesser known route and go to a US college campus wearing a Star of David or an IDF T-Shirt. Careful, it's not for the weak of heart. Being pro-Israel on American campuses has become a real struggle. The hostility towards Israel and its supporters is palpable, and as Palestinian propaganda manages to conquer the hearts of American students, the Jewish student unions work around the clock to spread the truth. From the front line of the battlefield, we have with us today Ofir Dayan. Ofir studies at Columbia University in New York, and she's the head of SSI, which stands for Students Supporting Israel. She's now visiting Israel, and she joins us to talk about what's going on U.S. campuses and maybe what can be done about it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So where do we start? What's the most appalling thing someone has ever said to you?
Wow,
about Israel?
That's a rough contest. But Israel, about me. I mean, I think it goes hand in hand. I think the most repulsive thing I've ever been told is that I'm a Nazi by
Sounds familiar.
I love that one. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all-time favorite.
He's been there.
Yeah. By I assume he is a 70 to an 80-year-old man with his granddaughter who goes to Columbia. She while being a member of one of the anti-Israel movements on campus, she felt bad for me being called out by her grandfather, and she tried to tell him to stop. And when I told him, you know what, like, this is not okay to call a Jew a Nazi, my ancestors were murdered in the Holocaust, he told me, you know what, I don't see the difference between Nazi Germany and Israel. What's the difference? Your prime minister Bibi's building these concentration camps and like gassing all these poor Palestinians. In that moment, you know, you understand that you have no one to talk to. You try to get a little bit of reason into that person, but, you know, it's just screaming.
It's hopeless.
You think
It's hopeless.
Is it really? I mean, there's no
Well,
there's no, I don't know, when you question the falsehoods that they're talking.
Well, with most people you can talk to, I always like to say that there are approximately 10 to 20% really hate Israel on college campuses. Then there are like about 10% of people who are very pro-Israel. Unfortunately, most of them are not very vocal about it. And then you have around 70, 80% of the students who, you know, they are not really aware of the situation here. They don't really care. And you know what? We like to think the world revolves around Israel, but it doesn't. And for 80% of these students, it doesn't really affect their lives. They are students who are from China, from India, from the United States, who really have better things to worry about. But unfortunately, in the American political climate, they will have to weigh in on this subject at some point.
So what's the kind of main goal of SSI and student bodies, student unions, sorry, not student bodies, student unions like that? Is it to kind of get the hearts of those 80%, or are you going after the 20?
Look, the 20% who already hate us, it doesn't matter what I'm going to say. They will say we're apartheid. They will say that we're baby killers and murderers and Nazis and whatnot. But these 80% of the students, these are the people that we really have to get to before the anti-Israel movements get to them. When they will have to weigh in on this subject, we want them to be as informed as possible and as educated as possible. And if they can be as educated and as knowledgeable about how we see this issue, even better. And there are many ways to do that. It could be programming that we put on campus. We bring speakers. We do what we call Hebrew Liberation Week. Twice a year, each semester, we have a week where we put on huge displays around campus explaining about Israel, about the Jewish people, the connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel, about the diversity, the different communities in Israel, both Jewish and non-Jewish.
But in the end of the day, how many people show up to these events as opposed to the amount of people that are standing outside holding signs and protesting and yelling?
Well, it depends on the event. I can't say that every single one of our event has a huge turnout. That's unfortunately not the case. And unfortunately, in many occasions, the anti-Israel movements have a bigger turnout than we do. But for example, Hebrew Liberation Week, when we stand on campus, it gets people to speak to us. Even if they don't necessarily agree with Israel or don't see eye to eye, at least they talk to us. And the first step in this process is them seeing us Israelis as human, as people with valid opinions. We can disagree on certain issues, but they see on, the core issues, we are good people, that we want peace, that we want to talk to them, and we have legitimate views. And this is the first step. What we started doing last year, and I thought was a very, very good step that we took, is we collaborated with another organization, Maccabi Task Force, and we sent a delegation of 20 student leaders to Israel, non-Jewish student leaders who have never been to Israel. So they are leaders of political and ethnic clubs on campus, for example, from the Native American Council, from the American Military Veterans Association, people who have a wide reach, who have influence on campus. And they came here for a week for the spring break. And they saw what Israel is all about, and now they're coming back. And then on Hebrew Liberation Week, one of them just stood there for the entire week with us. She's a Native American student, and she stood there and she told people who argued us, she said, you know what? I can speak about indigenous rights. I'm an indigenous individual. I'm a Native American, and I can tell you that the Jewish story with the land of Israel is exactly like me and my tribe in our land.
Was it Nancy Pelosi?
No, Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren?
The one...
the
one time a year.
1,004th Pocahontas or whatever.
Yeah.
That was non-PC of you to say
Yeah.
Pocahontas.
It's
Why? She's
a known
right?
she's a
space.
Native American character.
Let's just say he quoted Trump. It's
Okay.
fine. It's not his statement. But in a time where identity politics is so important on college campuses, having these people on our side understanding and being able to compare their story to our story is really one of the most important things that we have on campus.
But where does the hatred come from in the first place with those people?
Okay, so I feel like in many cases it's just ignorance. Let me tell you a story. You are an 18-year-old American kid. You come on your first day at Columbia University and you meet people who tell you, you know what, there's this country far away. It's named Israel. They prefer Jews to any other race or ethnicity, and they ethnically cleanse Palestinians, and they're apartheid, and there's two systems, one ruling Jews and one ruling all others. And you know what? I don't know if I wouldn't say, you know what, that's a just cause. Let's fight that. And these people come on campus and they believe that without seeing any proof. But they're being told that they're going to be the next social justice warriors, and they go for it.
But there's some responsibility there. I mean, I think you're cutting yourself too much slack by saying that you would go for it, because we check things and we make sure
first of
about
all,
things
unfortunately,
before
not all of us. And second of all, these are some of the people that are in these movements, but the leaders of the movements are people who genuinely believe that there is an injustice being done here, and that Israel is truly the bad guy in the story, and they truly believe that. And sometimes they also have, misinformation, or they lie on purpose. I don't know. But some of these people,
you don't think that's my, I guess, my question, and I feel like maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you don't think that that's the crux of the matter, is that people are doing this deliberately? Like,
some of them, the leaders are. I want to be, give the benefit of the doubt to the people who are just members of these organizations or just support them without being members, and say, maybe they are not fully aware that they are being lied to.
Mm-hmm.
But in many cases they are.
So it's not like they're anti-Semites from home and then they see a chance to
some of them are
whitewash, or I don't know.
Some of the leaders are. Okay.
No, I'm not. Forget the leaders.
Oh.
Let's talk about the
regular
soldiers.
Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't think they're bad people. I think they are genuinely, most of them, I don't know all of them, but most of them, I think they're just people who truly believe they're doing the right thing. They're fighting for the cause of our lifetime. And
But couldn't you say
But
that on many people throughout history?
yes, and many of these people were wrong.
But I don't see. I mean, okay. First of all, I've never been on a college campus
should
in
come.
this.
He's
I mean, I've been on
never
college.
been to college.
I've never been in an educational institution.
Okay.
No, I've never been on a college campus in the United States in this scenario. I mean, I've been in college campus. I grew up in the U.S., but I never
Yeah.
encountered this. But I have I've seen videos of people. You know, there's tons of videos on the web of people confronting these kind of people on campuses, and there's a sense that these people are not entirely stable.
Well, these are the leaders, the people who are
No,
confronting.
I'm talking about when they walk around with a camera and they just talk to like random protesters that are there, not just in. But there's a sense. What I'm saying is, and I wonder if there's any truth to this, but I get a sense that these people are the type of people that are looking for these causes to fight because there's something
100%.
not good.
100%. I
home.
don't know if there is something not good about them, but
Not that they're bad people.
I don't think they're bad people. I think that on many college campuses, I know, firsthand in Colombia, that being socially and politically active is very much encouraged by the faculty, by the professors, by the administration.
Only if it's for one side, though.
Yeah, and they feel like they have to find this cause to fight for, because if they want to go to law school and, their law school admissions officer would see that they were not involved in any political activity, they would be like, you know what, maybe I'm not going to take this person. So yeah, I think that many of them feel like it's a genuine part of their schoolwork to be politically active. And unfortunately, on campuses like Columbia and other campuses on the East and West Coast, being pro-Palestinian, which is fine, but being anti-Israel is not. But being anti-Israel became this cause that, it's just like, if you do that, you're good. You're good.
How, I mean, you say that being socially and politically active is encouraged, but how complicit is the university in this specific narrative? Like, how complicit are they in pushing the anti-Israeli?
That's a very good question. It differs. Some universities are better. Some universities are worse. Unfortunately, Columbia is one of the worst in that sense. We encountered many cases of explicit anti-Semitism. For example, last Apartheid Week, unfortunately, we have that once a year. Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace distributed a flyer to promote their week, in which you see an Israeli soldier with horns. Okay, just a random example. And we went to the administration and said, you know what, like a Jew with horns, that's not a legitimate poster. Like, you have to do something about it. Nothing. We have, for example, and it's not just a student. Let's go to the faculty. We have a professor. I'm going to shame him publicly because he deserves it.
Cool.
Professor Hamid Abashi is a professor from an Iranian descent. And he, for example, wrote on his Facebook page a few months ago that behind every treacherous, ugly act in the world, you can find the word Israel. And then he wrote, and he attached a picture of Jared Kushner to that beautiful sentence. And a month ago, he wrote that the only difference between Israel and ISIS is that Israel has an army of columnists in the New York Times. And when we go
in
to
the New York Times?
Yeah.
Has he read the New York Times?
If he would say like Fox News, I would say, okay, fine, maybe. But like the New York Times, he's very radical. And we went to the university. We talked to them about it. And, they say, you know what, that's freedom of speech. That's fine. And when students see that a tenured professor can say something like that and, walk out with zero consequences, the university doesn't care. When the university host Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, while he was still the president of Iran, and he walks on stage and says, there are no gay people in Iran. And the university says, fine, no response.
They hosted it, what year was this?
2008.
What?
Columbia has a world global leaders forum.
I knew he was in Cambridge. I don't remember the quote.
He was invited to Columbia, in 2008 as a part of the Global Leaders Forum Colombia has. And the president of Colombia, introduced him and said, he's a horrible person, he's a dictator, whatever. But when this person goes on stage and says, there are no gays in Iran, nobody says, okay, now get off the stage. Or maybe we shouldn't invite this person.
Wait, he introduced him as like a horrible person? What?
Yeah. The president of Colombia is a whole
big
different
applause
issue.
to a horrible person.
Yeah. And then you invite him. The president of Colombia is a First Amendment lawyer, so this is what he does. It's very important to him.
But isn't free speech where is the boundary of free speech? That's the big question here. Like I know that people like Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro and all these guys, they would fight for freedom of speech no matter what, even in these cases.
Columbia University is a private organization, right?
Yeah, so it's not... Yeah, since Columbia is a private organization, it doesn't have to comply with the First Amendment. But it doesn't matter. Like, the fact of the matter is that the First Amendment is only given to one side of the story at Columbia. And I'm not condoning any of this, but when the Republican club on campus hosted a white supremacist, he was taken off stage violently by students, and the students suffered no consequences. On the other hand, when Adamir, which calls for freeing all the political prisoners, which are people who are convicted with murder of citizens, come to Colombia, there is zero response from the administration.
I mean, if you held like a screening of Birth of a Nation, they would shut it down.
Yes.
Like, they wouldn't let that happen. But I do, though, think that it's interesting because I do think in the general public, like in public settings, if someone holds a sign with a Jew with horns on it, I think the idea of Germany outlawing Nazi symbols and the Nazi movement, or even calling someone,
it's ridiculous.
Is ridiculous. So it's better to see these people. Why not have them in the light of day? But the question of whether or not a private organization should monitor speech is a good one.
Well, if it's a private organization, you have the freedom to not to go and study there.
Yeah.
Theoretically, yes, but you have to remember that a university has the obligation to protect the students. That's also a part of the role of the university, especially, for example, when we met with the vice president for student life, that's her role, to protect the students.
But the question is protect physically, absolutely. I mean, violence is definitely not condoned and not okay, and I don't think they would allow,
I don't know.
Maybe.
I hope
But
so.
I hope that they wouldn't allow people to lynch Jews. But there's a difference between that and protecting you against, I don't see it as protecting if they were to stop the kid with the picture of the Jews and the horn.
Oh, I'm not saying stop him. I'm saying take down the flyers.
So that's my question: is you or SSI? I don't know if you can speak for SSI if you want to.
She's the head of it.
Yeah, I can.
No, I know. I'm saying I don't know if you want to, but you feel as if the private organization that is Columbia University should monitor free speech.
Well, to a certain extent. If they would just say, Israel is ethnically cleansing Palestinians, that's a lie, but they are allowed to say it. Once it crosses to anti-Semitism, we are on a whole different level and a whole different issue, and then Colombia should reconsider its, freedom of speech policy.
Did they ever do something that you said, now they did the right thing? Ever, or never?
Well, I'll have to think about that. In our case, unfortunately, no. We have been through a lot with the Columbia administration. We, a year ago, filed a 13 pages complaint against SJP for violating Columbia Students for Justice in Palestine. And we filed a complaint, 13 pages, about how they broke university protocols, tearing down our flyers, interrupting events, etc. Something completely, how they broke the rules, not something political, not ideological, nothing like that. Everything backed with videos, pictures, etc. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the university chose to just ignore it. So when I look at the university and say, are you protecting me as a student? The answer is no. When I ask the students that I'm in charge of at SSI, do you feel safe and do you think the university would protect you if something happens, even physical? The answer is, in most cases, no.
Oh, really? Physical?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. When we met the vice president for Student Life, and I asked her, you know what, if at some point it gets physical, like, you know, you can't say we never told you it's going to get to that point. So her response was, well, keep public safety on your speed dial. When that's the university response, students really can't be
So they
you know,
never
safe on
provide
campus.
protection, guards, anything like that in
No,
your events?
we had a protest that was protesting the white supremacists, nothing to do with us. And when we walked by, they circled us and started chanting, and like the whole situation was like very intense and very scary. We were 5 people surrounded by 70 people chanting and screaming, and you know, university police was there and the NYPD was there, and they just didn't do anything. So I don't think my students feel safe knowing that, you know, in future reference, okay, I have it on speed dial, but they were standing right there and doing nothing. So why would it be different?
Was something happening? Was there violence happening?
Well, there were 70 people just like in a circle. We were standing in the middle, 5 people, and they're all like screaming and chanting at us like things about Israel and about us personally, and we couldn't get out. We just couldn't get out. We needed to walk out of the building, and it just like circled us.
That can be traumatizing.
Well, I feel like maybe for the younger students, you know, I started college at 23, so I'm
You're
mentally...
an IDF grade.
Yeah, I was an officer in the IDF. I arrived there at 23.
You know Krav Maga.
Not really, but my situation is very different. But when I think of students who are 18 and they just, you know, want to do what they believe in, and they encounter these situations, it could be very traumatizing. I know that many people don't, you know, many people who are pro-Israel are not vocal about that because they don't want to suffer the consequences, not just physical and verbal violence, but they don't want to lose friends because it's not cool to be pro-Israel anymore. They want to have their friends, and being woke and progressive and like anti-Israel is what's cool on campus right now.
Right.
God, I hate that word, woke.
I know, me too.
It's like
What-
not even
what-
the right grammatical
What does it mean?
conjugation.
Like waken to the
Woke,
truth?
Yeah. It
it's
means like socially active.
like hyper progressive.
Yeah,
Oh God.
like woke. Like I'm attuned to microaggressions.
That exactly. That's what it means.
I one thing that caught my ear. You said Jews for peace.
Yeah. So yeah.
That sounds like a.
Yeah, Jewish Voice for Peace
Jewish-
is
yeah.
a national organization in the United
Self-loathing
States.
Jews
Yeah. So it's a
there.
bit like If Not Now and all these organizations who are on the far left of American politics. They, at least at Columbia, and I know in many other campuses, are, you know, kind of working under Students for Justice in Palestine. They're like the, you know, we have a Jews who are not anti-Semites, that kind of people. They are on the very far left of American politics, and they are obviously anti-Zionists, but it's more than that. They call, you know, Palestine from the river to the sea. They are advocating for the complete elimination of the state of Israel.
So what's their story?
So
Like,
unfortunately, many of them came from Zionist households. Many of them went to Jewish day schools. And some of them just want to, you know, feel like they're doing the right thing and they're not like their parents and whatnot.
Yeah, I think they listened to Rage Against the Machine and they never got over it.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they're too young for that. I don't know.
Yeah. So
listen to Katy Perry.
I don't know the current like parallel of Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen to Avril Lavigne or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're too young for that too.
Oh my God, that's me. Okay, fine. But you know, many of them, you know, it's sad, but I think a lot of this can be attributed to a failure of the established Jewish communities in the U.S. Because when they speak with their kids about Israel, before coming to college, ever since they're young, what they're being told, you know, you have the Western Wall and you have camels and you have ways and drip irrigation and cherry tomatoes and all these wonderful things. And then they come to college campus and they see apartheid and they see ethnic cleansing. And then, you know, like I always like to say, it's like someone would tell you, you know, you beat your wife, and then you tell him, yeah, but like, how cute is my kid? We're not addressing the real issue. They're not telling their kids, okay, if someone says Israel is an apartheid, this is what you should say, because it's factually not true. They're just saying cherry tomatoes, and you can pour, truckloads of cherry tomatoes on an apartheid wall. It doesn't go away. You have to know how to combat that.
How does one combat that?
Well, it's a very good question with facts. Unfortunately, facts don't matter as much today on college campuses and on this side of the U.S.
There is an occupation, though, right? You acknowledge that.
Well, to a certain extent, it's actually the term.
Army rules
the term
territories.
the term is disputed territories.
Yeah, but the army does rule.
Yeah, the army does
There
rule
is-
these territories.
yeah.
I don't think anyone disputes that.
Okay.
You can see that on the ground, but apartheid is a completely different thing.
No,
Yeah.
but there's a governing body, the Palestinian Authority.
Yeah, but
which
it's-
doesn't
it's-
happen in
It's
most
one step
occupations.
under, but they apply to the army.
But when
Yeah.
they say Israel is an apartheid, they don't necessarily speak about Judea and Samaria. They're
Yeah.
referring to Israel. And when you look at Israel, you see Supreme Court judges who are, self-defined
I
Palestinian.
think they mostly do talk
Unfortunately,
about
not
the
today.
territories.
Unfortunately, not today.
Well, those who know their shit
Well, unfortunately,
talk
again,
about
no. Unfortunately,
territories.
if you looked at college campuses 10 years ago, you could say that. Today, on college campuses, they're not speaking about...
They're quoting a quote from a quote that someone heard 10 years ago.
But it's not just that. I think college campuses, especially the liberal ones, are so radicalized that they're no longer even referring to Judea and Samaria. They're referring to everything, to the entire land. And when they call from the river to the sea, it's the Jordan River to the sea.
Right.
It's not about Judea and Samaria. It's about everything. And when they, one of their chants is, we don't want two state, we want 48. They're not referring to Judea and Samaria. They're not referring to where I live in the Samaria. They're referring to here where you
they're
live
like-
in Tel Aviv.
They're literally saying
Yeah,
it.
they're saying we don't want
Like-
two state, we want 48.
Yeah.
And long live the Intifada and all these wonderful chants.
You got to give it up to them for the
Copywriting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
they're really good.
lyrics. They're
By the way, in the propaganda arena,
We suck.
we suck. We're not doing it well. And that refers exactly to the point we spoke about earlier. We are speaking about cherry tomatoes and drip irrigation while they're speaking of ethnic cleansing.
Right.
And
In Israel, they just invested a huge amount of money in a campaign, anti-BDS campaign, in Hebrew
yeah.
Yeah.
for
What a
Israelis.
bunch of idiots.
Well, yeah. On the one hand, yeah. When I first looked at it, I was like, okay, why is it in Hebrew? But when you actually think about it, I'll tell you my story. At Columbia, I get at least once a semester an Israeli professor coming to speak and advocate BDS on our campus. They professors who teach in Hebrew U, in Tel Aviv University, who are hosted by these movements and by the Center for Palestine Studies at Columbia, and they are hosted to speak about BDS and why Israelis support BDS. So I wouldn't say this campaign is completely unnecessary. I am aware that they can change the minds of these professors who are already supporting BDS, but they can change the minds of their institutions who fund these trips. So while I do think this campaign should be mostly in English or Spanish or whatever, wherever you want to run it, but Hebrew is
Arabic
also
would
necessary.
be cool.
Yeah,
I
no,
agree.
that would be useless.
Well, I don't
Come
necessarily
on.
agree. See what happens now with Bahrain, and now the foreign minister is in
Saudi
Abu Dhabi.
Arabia.
Money. I don't really think they're ever gonna love Jews and
Oh,
hug us. And
it's not about loving us. It's about understanding that we're here to stay and we're strong and they need us.
Yeah, that's
it's a
but
game
that's
of
exactly what I'm saying.
interests.
It's a different campaign.
Yeah.
That's just staying here and being
yeah,
strong.
but
not,
if
like, telling
once
them-
Qatar was completely funding the Institute of Palestine Studies at Columbia, you perhaps can assume that in 20 years from now they would no longer have the interest to do that, and it directly
that's very
affects.
optimistic.
Well, assume, and
Yeah.
perhaps both of them in the sentence.
What's the numbers we're dealing with here in Cambridge, for example? So how many people in your organization and how many
good
people in the anti-Israeli?
Okay, so the entire concept of members in organizations on college campuses is very vague. With us, we are approximately 70 people. With them, it's the same amount. However, what they do have and we don't is that they have their coalition, Columbia University Apartheid Divest, COAD, which consists of 16 different groups on campus. Some of them the strongest student groups on campus, like Black Lives Matter, Asian groups, queer groups, stuff like that, which are signatories to their apartheid petition. And these groups, although not official members of their organizations, are supporting them in everything they do. They come to their events, they support them on Apartheid Week, they table with them when needed. And when BDS comes to student government, they are signatories to that petition.
You can't help but, like, I hate, because it's so militant, the whole term social justice warrior, but, like, it's what they are. It's like they're ready to fight for any cause that's just, like, rebellious and...
exactly.
It's frustrating.
I'll give them the credit that they do think they're doing something right, and
I don't agree with you on that. I really don't think. I think they're ignoring the issues they have at home. At home meaning either at home or with themselves or at their own, their personal problems. No, I don't think it's they're bored. We all have deep issues and we don't want to confront them. So we distract ourselves.
Some do podcasts.
Some do podcasts, and some
and some curse Jews on campus.
Yeah. I don't think that they're doing the right thing.
We should help these guys get a podcast, and then
I'll definitely.
Yeah, great idea.
I definitely suggest that.
Give the
spread their message a little more.
Just give them a microphone.
So to sum it up, they are plenty, and you're few, basically.
I would say, yeah, we are fewer. There are a lot of pro-Israel students on campus. We have a huge Hillel, which is like Center for Jewish Life, and most of the people there support Israel to a certain extent. But these people are silent.
Right.
If all these people were vocal, you would have, by far more pro-Israel students than anti-Israel students. But these people are maybe afraid to voice their opinions about Israel, or just are not as passionate. But yeah.
Have you ever had a convert? Like, have you guys ever managed to convince one of the
Jews, maybe?
No, one of the anti-Israeli Jews or one of the other,
It's a good question. So, yes, we had a few. But I think the most interesting stories are people who are not completely convinced, but like the people who come not just like, don't like Israel, the people who hate Israel. And then you go through a process with them. On one of the apartheid weeks, and when we do our display, our Hebrew Liberation Week, when they have their apartheid week, a person from a Middle Eastern country walked up to me and started cursing me, and I said, you know what, if you want to talk about this, let's talk. Like, cursing is not going to solve anything, let's talk. And we talked for, I think, 45 minutes, and then he had to leave for class, and he said, can I have your email and we'll correspond. And he emailed me a few days later with an hour-and-a-half video of Miko Peled, which is an Israeli. His father was a general in the IDF, and he is an extremely anti-Israel advocate. And he makes, some horrible claims. And I answered the email. I watched the entire hour and a half of the
claims. Is like what, for example?
Exactly what they're making, like apartheid, ethnic cleansing, and like my father was a general, so I know what he did, and all that kind of claims. And
the famous Pilate. His father, right?
Pellet, I think, and I said, and I watched the hour and a half, and I sent him, I think it was like a 2,000 words email, like addressing like each of the claims he made, and we emailed back and forth a little, and then we took a class together, and I'm not gonna say that he likes Israel now. I don't think that's the case, but the fact that he is now considering me a friend, and he introduced me to his friends, which are also very anti-Israel, and we're getting coffee sometimes, and he sees me as a human being with legitimate views, although he might disagree with some of them, and he knows me, Ofir, I'm not a murderer. I think that's one step forward, and I really like that phase, that in-between phase, that you can help people realize that their views are, in most cases, way, way harsh than they should be.
So you're optimistic or pessimistic?
I don't think it's gonna get better. I think college campuses are only getting more and more extreme. I am optimistic about, Jewish and non-Jewish student leaders who are very dedicated to this cause. My organization is not a Jewish organization, so we have many non-Jews with us advocating for Israel. And when I see them, I'm very, very optimistic. But I do believe
evangelist Christians. No.
We have on my board. I had a person who's from an Iranian descent, a Muslim. Now I have a girl who's Peruvian, and a student who is from a country that doesn't even recognize Israel.
Suppose there's not too many evangelist Christians in Colombia.
No, it's not a thing.
Like one.
Definitely not a thing.
Is that
I think
PC to say?
I think
What?
there was one and it was kicked out or something.
You're obsessed with PC lately.
I don't want to offend our evangelist.
No, it's just they don't go to
They're
Colombia.
great people. They just don't go to Colombia.
Well, they
Unfortunately, we
should.
need you. They should. But yeah, I'm very optimistic when I see these people. But
Can you? You're wearing the Star of David. I
Yeah.
wonder if you can go like that.
I wear it in Colombia
Cambridge.
as well.
In Colombia.
Outside?
Yeah, 100%. I'm not gonna say that it's not. Like, people look at it. It's not a
Yeah.
common look. I even had one instance where I was talking to one of my friends in Hebrew, and people just heard us and started screaming like, "Zionist, get out of the building." Stuff like that. So like hearing Hebrew and like stuff like that is not very common, and people react to it.
Plus, in the next, college shooting, it's an easy target.
Yeah, they can
You
recognize
wear a-
me like
yeah, you wear a cross.
far. Yeah, but like it's
Not
only
too dark.
No, it's fine. I'm fully aware
I mean,
that
it's
it's gonna
dark.
happen at some point.
It's funny because I was actually thinking about it logically. I was like, well, really, if someone comes into a college looking to shoot, they're not going to look for the necklace type. I didn't even think about
They're
it.
gonna look for the Jews though.
Are they? I feel like if you go for a school shooting, and this is
Then
what
drilling
really
rushes.
bothers me is that I'm thinking about it so logically.
If I were to,
Yeah, like I feel like you're probably just shooting whoever you see.
So you're like pessimist when
Well-
it comes to the colleges, but optimist.
Sounds
Yeah,
realist.
I'm very optimistic when it comes to the people advocating for Israel. I don't think it's gonna get it is gonna get better in the future, just not the near future. I kind of look at it as a cycle, and we're like maybe like 85% crazy right now, and at some point it has to go back to being normal.
Because
And-
from the outside perspective, it sounds like this: like if assuming you're an American and you're a Jew and you're not a self-loathing Jew, I wonder what do you have to look for in these places that loathe you,
That's a
right?
good question, but most people, first of all,
They don't want you there.
Yeah, they don't. Most
So-
people,
Get the hell out of there, right?
Unfortunately, a lot of the people there, their Judaism is not their number one priority, or not even like how they define themselves. They're first of all Americans.
Okay, but I'm
then
saying
they're,
in
like, whatever.
general. In general,
People
what do
wanna
Jews have to look for in
Good
these
education,
places?
Ivy League school. I came there because I knew it's harsh and they hate Israel, and I felt that I could make a difference. And some of the people do feel that, and some others are just, we're gonna not talk about it this much. We're not gonna be active in the pro-Israel
We're
world.
gonna be little obedient Jews.
Yeah, a lot of them are, and you know what? I can't blame them. I don't know.
It's pretty pathetic, though.
I completely disagree with, the tactic of just not doing anything. Colombia has an apartheid week, I feel like maybe 10 years now, and it only been countered since students supporting Israel, started on campus. Until then, we had Jewish and pro-Israel organizations that just, their tactic was like hide in the Hillel building, like close the door and like wait until it passes. And for me, this view is just horrible. It's anti-Semitism. It doesn't go away. You have to fight it. But most of these people, they want to live their lives, get good education from an Ivy League school, and just move on. And if it means that for the next 4 years they're not going to talk about Israel, they don't talk about Israel. Unfortunately.
That's some sad, pathetic shit.
I agree.
Right there.
But I think you're overlooking the fact that most American Jews just don't. Yeah, like she said, they don't have that identity. I mean, Judaism is not their Jewish identity is
but
not.
Neither
a core
the German
part.
Jews.
Okay.
No,
Look what
they.
happened.
I don't know.
Right. They also thought that's the thing.
Until someone forces you to confront your Jewish identity.
But that's what's going on
Yeah.
there, essentially.
Yeah, history repeats itself. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to have another Holocaust. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that if we just allow this to escalate without fighting it, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. And it's our job to do something about it as young Jews and non-Jews who care about doing, what's right and fighting for what's right. We have to do it. And unfortunately, many of the Jewish students, are not there yet.
So people who want to join, is there SSI in other campuses?
So it's a national movement, international now. We have 50 chapters, mainly in the US, but 2 in Canada, and we're now opening in Israel also, trying.
Really?
Yeah. So
I guess I never
guess
thought
it's
about
needed.
that, but yeah, it is.
It is, yeah.
It is
you can
needed.
start in the
Like, we
Google
studied-
Kolnova Televizia
Yeah.
at the Tel
We
Aviv
studied in
University.
film school, and there you would show up to class about film history and essentially listen to half an hour of anti-BB
Yeah.
propaganda
I mean,
instead of studying.
yeah, that's why,
history.
our national movement decided that we really need that. So if
So how
anyone wants to
yeah.
join, first of all, we have our website, studentsupportingisrael.org, I think. Just Google Students Supporting Israel. Or you can reach out to me on Facebook, Ofir Dayan.
You're on Twitter.
And on Twitter, mostly Hebrew, but you can still reach out.
But does Students Supporting Israel have a Twitter?
Well, yes, not very active, but we also have a very active Facebook page. So
Okay.
there is
And
better.
do you guys, like specifically your Colombian branch, do you need donations? Do you
Well,
accept
always.
donations?
We do.
How can people donate?
So there is a donate button in the Students Supporting Israel Nationals webpage. You can just go there. There's a blue donate.
And you can choose.
You can click it.
It's a global donation.
Yeah.
Or?
So yeah, and if you want to donate to a specific chapter, you just reach out to this chapter,
Okay.
and we just we tell our national movement that.
And that money
donations
goes
are
straight to
Yeah, of course.
fighting.
We're a grassroots movement, so all the people are students. Besides, even the national president is a master student, so everyone's a student. So it goes directly to what we're doing.
Right.
Buying materials, flyers, whatever. This is what it goes towards.
Sounds like a nice cause.
I agree.
So do it. Do it.
Pull your wallets out.
Okay. Anything else we need to plug before we wrap things up?
No, it's
right?
fun.
Okay. So we collaborate with the Jewish Journal at jewishjournal.com, and you can go and check out their website. They have podcasts, articles, and whatnot. They're on Facebook, and they're awesome. So go to jewishjournal.com. And
we do this on our free time, so we also accept donations. But today you should donate all your money to SSI.
but only today.
But if you want to, after you donate all your money, if you have some more money left over that you want to donate to us, 2njb.com/donate. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much
Thank
for
you for
coming.
having
Enjoy
me.
your visit,
Thank you.
and good luck.
And whenever you're in New York,
Sure.
come.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.